Hello, and thank you very much for coming. I have to apologize. My Hungarian is not good enough to chat to you in Hungarian today, although I did learn last night that good evening is you're wasted, which is in English, you're drunk. Brilliant. So what I want to chat to you today is about Oracle and security and how we are enabling the digital economy. My name's Howard Steen. I've been working in Oracle for just over 4 years. I've been working in security now for just over 12 years. I started off as a technical consultant, moved into more of a business development and sales role, so please don't throw anything at me. One of the things I just want to quickly go through before we get to the agenda is the safe harbor statement. Although I'm going to show you a whole load of stuff, it doesn't mean that I can promise to deliver any of this, which is the standard usual thing from Oracle. So I'm going to go through just a little bit of history about Oracle and where we stand in the security space. I'll give you a quick overview of the Oracle security strategy. What we're doing, where we're going with this, and how we see the market. Then we're going to talk a little bit about securing the new digital economy. We're seeing across the globe now a huge drive to generating more business via mobile phones, via websites, via all sorts of new technology, and it's basically how is security actually enabling the business to go out and generate more revenue for the organizations. And then obviously we're just going to talk one little last bit about some of the new security requirements coming around information. So for those of you who didn't know, and this usually is the case, that not many people know that security, that Oracle does security. So we've actually been doing security since 1977. Now, that was when we first started with the database, and we were working very closely with a lot of the American CIA, the FBI. Now, I will say, though, that we are not helping them to snoop into everybody else's stuff, so we're not involved with the NSA. If you actually look a lot of the analysts, we've been, for the past most probably 5 to 10 years, we have been in the leaders quadrant for Gartner for identity and access management and also database security. So if you didn't know that we do security, we've been in it for a long time, and we have got some of the best solutions in the market. And also, we're obviously delivering an awful lot of development into those spaces to make sure that not only are we, the leaders today, but we'll be the leaders for the next few years coming. So when we talk about the digital revolution, you guys all seeing quite a lot of things? Bring your own devices. Are you getting that quite a bit? Quick show of hands. How many people have a corporate phone in the room? Okay, just checking no one's asleep. The next thing is, how many of you also have a personal device? So you're getting lots and lots of people who are coming in with 2 devices. So we're starting to see an awful lot of that. But also when you look at the market, we're seeing that, that when you've got the cloud coming in, you've got mobile phones, you've got a whole host of new services which are being consumed, and how do you, work with things like social media. So it's a huge thing, is the digital revolution, and Oracle is very much focused on this. We're already generating over $1 billion in revenue on that, and we've just made over 10 acquisitions in this area, so that we're going to be expanding and driving even further into this space. When we go around, we talk to an awful lot of organizations about what they're doing, what they're seeing is valuable to the business. And one of the things that we are seeing is chief security officers. The number of chief security officers in organizations is going up dramatically. Now, a lot of people ask, why is that? Well, when you look at traditional IT security, it's all about keeping the bad man out. We live in a castle. That's great. We can put a big moat and a big wall around our castle. Nobody can get in. We can let only the good guys in and keep the bad guys out. But when you look at the current economy and the way that people are trying to generate revenue, what you actually see is that those walls have come down. You've got Wi-Fi, you've got paperless payments, things like that. You can pay for things on your mobile phones. I can order things on my mobile phone. So putting up these big barriers is actually preventing the businesses from generating revenue and working with a lot of organizations. So a lot of the traditional perimeter security defense out there is great, but it's 20 years old, and we need to change, because the only way that organizations can work and integrate with their consumers, whether that be from a government perspective or from a commercial perspective, you need to be able to offer services and solutions, and a lot quicker, a lot easier, and by multiple different avenues. So when we generally do these things, we always want to talk about, oh yes, you want to keep the bad man out. Well, and that you should choose Oracle solutions, of course. But what we'd like to do today is just to quickly walk through about actually what is some of the most lucrative criminal areas that you could go into. So I had a quick look myself. I was thinking about maybe doing a job role change from Oracle. Wanted to earn a bit more money. So I was having a look. So 30 billion, and that's just in the US, is the economy that you get from stolen mobile phones in the US. I think in San Francisco alone, they were saying like every 1 minute, something like 10 mobile phones is stolen. However, I don't fancy going and mugging people on the street and stealing their phones. Then I looked at another area, stealing cars. Well, that sounds quite interesting. 56 billion in stealing cars and then fencing them off to the market. But it's getting quite difficult, to steal some of the new cars. It's, to go in and get the keys and everything for them. It's getting quite difficult, and then to obviously fence them and ship them, the big things. It gets quite expensive. But there's quite a lot of money to be made out of that. If you look at the cocaine market, and this is just the cocaine market, not the all of the drugs out there, that's 85 billion is the cocaine market globally. Now, I'm thinking that's quite nice, but I'm just waiting till it gets to 90 billion before I jump in and start going in. The other problem is that most of it is over in California, and although the weather is nice, I don't fancy it. But when you actually look at one of the biggest areas is stolen credit card market. That's $114 billion annually. And when you add that into the total global cybercrime market, that's $288 billion annually. And the funny thing is, when you actually look at that, is a lot of organizations don't value the things that a lot of the criminals out there really do value. And the thing that is most valuable to an awful lot of these organizations is data. If you talk to companies like Apple, what do you think is the most valuable thing to Apple? Is it an iPhone? Is it a thing? No, it's their corporate intellectual property, such as the designs, what their future strategies are, things like that. That's their most valuable asset. But if you don't protect that, and you can put all of the, all of the security, defense, and everything you want out there, but that's not going to do you any good. There's, I've seen FireEye on the agenda here. FireEye did a survey 2 years ago, and they reckon that it's somewhere in the region of 95% of organizations are already breached. So you can put as much security, on the outside, trying to stop people get in, but they're already inside. And the funny thing is, when you look at this, is that we know there's a number of government states which are funding organizations to go out and steal information. And if it's funny now, you can actually go out. If I wanted to steal some information from, say, BMW, I could actually go pay somebody by the hour to go and attack BMW and get information that I want out of there. I can, charge to do a denial of service attack against maybe a government state over in the Middle East, say. I can pay them by the minute to go do a denial of service attack by them. So that's great. I've got all this, software as a service and, SaaS cloud, all this great stuff. But also the criminals are also using that. And one of the really cool things is when they actually do attack. So when the American government got breached recently, they hadn't protected their data, so they hadn't encrypted any of the information. But you know what the people who stole the information did? They actually, once they got in, they stole the information, but they encrypted it before they took it out. And the reason they did that was because then the American government didn't know what they'd stolen. And it took them ages trying to find out what it was they had stolen. But which just tells you that obviously the criminals value our data much more than we do as an organization. And I'm sure we've all seen the horror stories and things about organizations who have data breaches. There's lots of them over in the US, but we are hearing more and more about them over in EMEA. And the problem is, it's the actual impact that has on an organization. And there's lots of stats out there which show that once you've been breached and they get access to your information and start sharing it, you're very likely that your company will go down very, very quickly. So when we actually look at a lot of the market, so we went out and we've done an awful lot of analysis with the likes of Verizon. I don't know if you guys all know Verizon. They're obviously a big telco company. They do lots of really cool stuff, but they also do an awful lot of analysis on data breaches. And when you actually look at the most increasing one, 1,600% increase in hacking in the marketplace. So, and the thing is, what they're doing is they are targeting your users, your employees, and things like that. And what they're doing is they're going out and stealing their credentials. So the problem is, if you've got loads of firewalls and things like that, it doesn't matter, because they've got valid usernames and passwords to walk straight through and get internal into your networks and then take the information that they want. So when you look at this, and we can break this down a little bit more, of SQL injection and credential stealing is in the top three, the top two in the report, and 50% is lost or stolen credentials. And that tells you that the guys are going after this stuff, because it doesn't matter how sophisticated your perimeter defense is. If they get access to proper usernames and passwords, then it's really going to badly impact on you, because you can no longer track who's getting in and who's doing what to your systems. And also, if you look at SQL injection attacks, now I don't know, you guys all know about SQL, very useful tool within a database to pull out information. Well, they can be very, very quickly and easily modified to actually pull out much more information than they should. And lots of people are using, malformed SQL queries to pull out a lot of information which they shouldn't have access to. And the thing about this one is, if we only make it just a little bit harder for them to get in and actually get this stuff, and a very simple one is just to simply encrypt the data that sits within your database. When you look at there was an analysis done against it, and I think it was somewhere in the region of about 60% of the most valuable data sits in relational databases. And yet most people do not encrypt. I mean, out there, I think it's somewhere in the region of 80 to 90% of organizations do not encrypt the data that sits within their databases. And why would you not do that? That's the most valuable stuff that you have. You can put, as I said, you can put all the most sophisticated perimeter defense in. But if you've got a corrupt employee, you've got somebody who's managed to gain access via by doing spear phishing or social engineering to get access to those credentials, then they're going to get full access to all of your data and then be able to extract it and pull it out. So when you actually look about it, the risks are in the inside. And what we're trying to say is simple governance can reduce the risk of exposure. So just doing some very bog standard stuff, just doing a little bit of auditing, encrypting the data which sits within the database, making sure that you've got what we've called, there are so many ways that you can come into an organization. I'll touch on this in a slide or two. But things like target weak passwords. So if malware propagation generally comes from misconfiguration. And misconfiguration can be a number of things. If you've got a database, they reckon somewhere in the region of 76% of organizations take 6 months to patch a database issue. Well, if you look at 50% of the malware targets malconfiguration and basically unpatched systems, that means they've got 6 months to get into your systems and pull out the information that you've got stored there. And 85% of those attacks take 5 minutes or less. So, once they're in, they know exactly what they're looking for. They'll go in, they'll take it, and they're gone. And the good thing, the annoying thing is, as I said, they will encrypt the data, so you've no idea what they've stolen. And the end point is 80% are targeting weak passwords. So even if you've got, your RSA token or something like that, it doesn't matter. They've got the credentials to get into your systems. So, what do you do about that once they're in? You make it as hard as possible for them to actually get access, and it's only the right people who should get access to all of the most sensitive data. So, from security, when Oracle looks at this, we like to look at it from what we call security inside out. And what we mean by that is a defense in depth and strategy to that, because there is no one solution. We're not saying that, a lot of these firewalls and, strong authentication and things like that are irrelevant now. They are still very, very valuable. There's obviously an awful lot of vendors here talking about all of their different solutions, and they're all individually good. But when you look at a security strategy, you cannot just rely on one. You've got to have a number of layered approaches to make sure that you can keep the bad guys out, and also help drive the business by enabling, the right people to have access to systems and information and things like that. When you look at the new perimeter, it's become very, very complicated. As I said right at the start, it used to be the castle approach. You've got your employees, you've got your partners who are outside, and you've got your customers who are outside. Your employees are allowed into your castle, no problem at all. But now when you look at it, your people could be anything. So when I want access to a number of things within the UK, the UK government, they have to share so much of information now. They've got the Freedom of Information Act and things like that. They have to make sure that they can share relevant information, track what relevant information is shared, and make sure only the right people are getting access to it. But I mean, I could be anywhere. I could be accessing that from my mobile phone. I could be accessing from my iPad, from my corporate laptop. It really doesn't matter. But you've got to make sure that you can do that, because you cannot stop the people from consuming the data and getting on with it. What you can do is make sure that you audit it and make sure only the right people have access to that information at any time. When you talk about data, as I said, generally sits within the organizations. It's the most valuable thing you've got. For governments, they need to share information and start offering new services. Within the UK, you look at France and places like this, they're all trying to do new citizen services to stop people having to come into a central place to get things, because half the time it's very expensive to manage those services, yet if you put it out on the internet, it's much quicker, it reduces costs, and it makes everybody's life and user experience an awful lot more easier. But again, the concern there is who has access to that, what information are you actually sharing? And then I've already discussed about devices. You've got phones, you've got laptops, you've got tablets, lots and lots of different ways that people are wanting to consume and access the information and buy things. So from Oracle's perspective, we've got two areas that we link very, very closely together. And one is more of the internal approach, which is database security. And we come at this from three areas. We've got preventative, which we've got bog standard encryption, which is, and we call it transparent data encryption, so that historically everybody used to be really concerned about putting security and encryption on the database. Oh, it's going to have terrible, performance impacts on our systems. That's no longer the case. The systems and the software have developed so fast. We can do on-disk data encryption so fast there is virtually no performance hits at all. And when you look at the latest engineered systems and things like that, people were reporting less than 1% degradation on any sort of performance that they were seeing. When you're looking at redaction, customers are wanting to be able to share information on the fly. New applications are getting developed all the time, which, so that they can offer new services and share information. The problem with that is when you've got your application developers, they're very expensive. They've got to build security into their applications. How do you do that? And how do you manage that across, maybe hundreds, if not thousands, of applications that customers companies are deploying out to their customers? So a really cool thing that we can do is do on-the-fly data redaction. So we can, just depending on a user's role or something like that, we can actually encrypt the data so that they only see what they're supposed to see. When you look at data masking, this is a very one-way process of enabling people who are wanting to test applications. I just came back from Africa last week, and I'd been into a bank there, and they had huge problems with their live customer data. And they were sharing their live customer data with a couple of partners who were building applications for the bank. The big issue here was they came to me and said, Howard, we've got a big problem. We have to ship live customer data to these guys so that they can test it against their applications. And I said, well, yeah, that's not great. You don't really want to do that. And he said, yeah, but it's even worse. We've lost some of the disks, and the disks aren't even encrypted. So not only that, and so all of a sudden, they've got these disks floating around there. They've got no idea who's got it. And the funny thing is, the only time they'll actually find out about it is something will pop up on social media where somebody's found it. And it's bad enough that they've lost it, but then on social media, all of a sudden, all of this will be shared with, you know, the African population, where they see that this bank is no longer to be trusted because they're not, you know, they're not properly enforcing protection of their own personal data of their customers, which for brand value can suddenly destroy a company. So they were having huge issues around that, and they wanted to know how they could do that. Well, we said there's a very simple way you can do that. Just mask the data with one-way data masking, so it cannot be reversed at the other end. But the good thing is they can still get on and do all the testing they want against their applications so that they can still develop their applications to offer new services to their customers. When we look at the detective side, we can put in systems which will enable you to see, you know, what's being accessed from your databases, whether, you know, there's any malformed SQL injections, things like that. And it's, you know, it's one of those things that can silently sit there in the background and just monitor what's going on, or if you want, it can actually block and tackle the things that are going to and from your database, and it allows you to actually see what's going on from the database and data level. We can also do some things like on the administrative side, like privilege analysis. So a lot of the times the database administrators are so inundated with so much work that they have to do. The last thing that they want to do is, you know, stop, you know, the people accessing the data. The problem is they generally give out very high-level access to those databases, which causes huge issues because they're pulling out more information than they should. What we can do is we can actually analyze who's pulling out what and everything, and gradually reduce down so we get to what's called least privilege. So only the people who are accessing the information, they'll only get what they should be accessing at any one time. And again, we can also go off and do sensitive data discovery and a number of other some really cool things on the database side of things. But that's only one side of things. We also have one of the market-leading solutions in identity and access management. And we split this into 4 areas. We traditionally did the directory services side of things. So this is obviously storing all and having a single source of truth within your organizations. And we've developed this hugely over the past few years to make it very, very performant, so it will work with cloud environments and things like that. We've also been working on the access management side of things. So I was saying that one of the big things now is, yes, you might have, you know, a token or something like that which will allow you access if you've got the right username and password. Well, that's great. But we've all heard about, you know, what happens if this gets shared with somebody. Well, that can be a big issue. What we can do is we can do what's called adaptive access management, which enables you. So I'm Howard Steen. I've logged on with proper credentials from the UK at 10:01. At 10:02, I'm suddenly logging on from China. That's not possible for me to get from the UK to China. We haven't developed the transportation device which allows us to do that yet. But you know, it's impossible. So what we can do is then say, okay, although they've authenticated correctly with, you know, real credentials, we're going to prompt them for another challenge because we don't believe they can get from one to the other. Or we can just automatically block it. And so we can make sure that, you know, we can check and prove they are who they say they are. And again, you know, I might I go to Africa quite a bit, I go to the Middle East quite a bit, and when I go and log into my systems, I occasionally get challenged to prove who I say I am, even though I originally logged in with correct credentials. I then provide that additional layer of security, and then they know that they can trust me, because although I am in a different country, I travel a lot, so that's okay. Identity governance is one of the ones which has been out there for a long, long time, and this is more, it used to be more focused on the internal employees, so this was all about provisioning. So when you start your life as a new user, you come into an organization, and I want to have maybe 5 usernames and passwords for 5 different applications, and basically sit down at my desk and get on with my job. One of the problems was that used to be a very painful process, very manual, and could take somewhere between a week to 2 to 3 weeks before somebody actually had all of the relevant access before they could get on and do their jobs. And another issue there is obviously once you change job roles within an organization, do you have all of that previous access removed, modified, things like that? And a classic example of that was Societe Generale, where the guy who lost somewhere in the region of $3 billion for them, because he basically changed a load of job roles in that time, but he kept all of the usernames and passwords from all of his previous jobs. So once he got to the trading floor manager, what he could do was he could go onto the trading floor as a trader, do a load of trades, go to the back office, approve all of his trades, and then do a whole load of other things which actually allowed him to hide the stuff that he was doing. And it wasn't until it was far, far too late that they actually found out what he was doing. So the identity governance side allows you to monitor, manage, and do an awful lot of that, and make it all automated. Oh, sorry, and just one last area, which is the new area, which is mobile security. So we now have solutions which can actually help you manage your data on mobile devices, whether that be Android or iOS. So just to, in the last few minutes, just want to quickly go through some of the things which an awful lot of organizations, and why IT needs to change to a certain extent, especially IT security. IT security for a long time has been driven by the, used to drive the business. That you could go out there, you could tell the business what services you had, that's great, and they would adopt new things. The problem is now that the business is driving IT so hard they can't keep up. I can't keep account of the amount of organizations that I go speak to where they say everything they do is reactive. Every time they try and do a project, they can't, because the business suddenly comes, oh, we've got this new cloud application that we've just bought. We need you to secure it. We've got this new really cool marketing thing which wants to use social media. We want you to secure that. But they're always the last to know about it. They've already done all of the development work and things like this, and all of a sudden IT security are having to do firefighting to try and make these things work retrospectively, which becomes very, very difficult, and they can't do anything on that. And we see an awful lot of things: cloud adoption, bring your own device, BYOD, customer experience, business transformation, IT transformation, and industry transformation within an awful lot of organizations tends to be what's driving IT security these days. I'll go speak to a lot of IT security guys. No, we're not doing any of this stuff. And then 3 months later, oh yes, you know what? The business are now asking us for this. So IT security and the IT departments really need to know about this stuff and get proactive on how they can actually help drive the business, as opposed to just being the blocker all the time. So when it comes to securing the new digital economy, the new security market has significantly transformed. When you look, a number of organizations have been out and done a number of analysis, and the digital transformation is going to be critical within 2 years for most organizations. And this is being able to have mobile apps, be able to offer things via Facebook, via LinkedIn, all of these types of social media. But if you actually look, the report for this one was done in 2013, so we're already 1 year in, and we're seeing a huge drive from most organizations to be able to work in the digital space. The growth rate for sharing economy, and this is a very interesting one. I don't know if you guys have heard of a company called Airbnb, bed and breakfast. So in the US now, they are doing this service where you can rent out one of your spare rooms in your house. doesn't sound like a great idea to me, and I really don't want Oracle to find out about this because they'll start making me use it. But organizations like Hilton are catching on to this. They think this is great because if you go to certain cities and they have big events on, they only have certain capacity that they can do, and all of a sudden they start losing business. What they're now starting to do is to offer services to these customers within Airbnb. If you've got a spare room to let, we will give you Hilton towels, we'll give you Hilton bedding, we will redirect our customers to you once our hotels are full, and offering, and offering them at a premium rate, just so that they can expand out their customer base and be very, very flexible. And it's not just in that market as well. We're seeing lots of organizations who are wanting to consume more resources. Say they have a major project on the go. They want to just hire somebody for maybe 2 or 3 days. They don't want to hire them for a month or a year or anything like that. They have to have a very, very flexible way of dealing with that. And then when you look over to the security side, I've touched on some of this, but it's funny that I think somewhere in the region of, they say security drives up to 20 to 30% of tech spend. But of that tech spend, somewhere in the region of 60 to 70% is spent on perimeter defense and perimeter security, which is a huge amount and which is basically preventing your business from driving revenue. When you look at the cloud adoption, 46% say that the reason for slow cloud adoption is because of fear and because of security concerns. And as we already said, FireEye did a study in 2012 where they reckon that somewhere in the region of 95% of organizations are already breached. You just most probably just don't know about it. And the only time you will find out about it is from social media. So what we're seeing is an economy of a different scale. When you look internally, when you look at IT security, that was the way it was always about. But we now need to expand that out to not only to our business partners, but our consumers as well. So make sure that they are happy with the services that you are offering and making sure that they are secure. Because the last thing that you want to find out is that your security has been compromised and enabled criminal organizations to steal your consumer information. There's a big change coming also in the digital goods side of things. So digital printing is an interesting one. I mean, it used to be the phase. I don't know if you've all seen about Amazon and things. They're experimenting with these hovercrafts to deliver products to people's homes and stuff. Well, actually, you won't need to do that, because what you'll do is they're going to set up these digital printers, and all you'll do is you'll order something online, walk to your local digital printing office, where it might be on the convenience store on the corner or something like that. You'll put in your chip, which it says, I've got this, it's got the details for the thing, and it will print off your product for you. And we're already starting to see an awful lot of that, which is going to change the market in how distribution and things like that works. We've talked about exclusive shared resources. That's a new thing which is coming on with Airbnb and things like that. But one of the biggest areas is the channel market is moving much more to a social market. So using things like Facebook, LinkedIn, and being able to monitor and track how you perform to your market space, and being able to enable people to sign up to your services using social media. So I'm just going to quickly flip through some of these because we're just running out of time. We've got a number of customers out there. So these are very American-based, but these guys have embraced. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Insanity workout. This is one of these crazy ones where you do like a 10-minute workout, but you sweat yourself to death. Well, this Beachbody came up with this, and basically the way that they've expanded their business phenomenally is using Oracle Identity and Access Management to basically enable them to use things like social media, sign up using mobile devices, all of those types of things. They've also embraced things like web, mobile, social, because we're getting into a multi-channel architecture where there's lots of different ways that people want to come in, whether it's via a building, via a website, a mobile app, in-store, it really doesn't matter. There's multiple ways that people come in, and what you need to make sure is that they have a consistent user experience all the way across. And then bringing in mobile security concerns. I mean, I don't know if you guys all have mobile strategies and what you're going to do with mobile devices, Most organizations don't. So it's an area that you really, really need to start looking at, because if you don't, you're going to be caught out by the business because they're already using them within your organizations. We've got Safeways and organizations like that, you know, working very, very heavily on the loyalty space, and again, driving this using Oracle Identity and Access Management. And just finally with this, digital business is outstripping the standard IT market by over 5 times. So if you don't embrace this, you're going to struggle very, very hard within the organizations. And with that, I'll leave it at that, as I've run out of time before I get hooked off and down the stairs. Cool. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. But thank you very much for your time.